Good morning, dear students. So we had already started the third chapter, and now we'll be doing some other topics or the left topics of this chapter. So let's start with the government policy towards public sectors. Okay, so Government of India, it introduced four major reforms in the public sector in its new industrial policy, that was 1991. So what were they? They were as follows. So first one was de-reservation in 1956 industrial policy resolution. So 17 industries were reserved for the public sector, and in 1991 only 8 were reserved for the public sector. In 1956 it was 17, then 1991 it was only 8. So they were restricted to the areas of like atomic energy, arms, defense, mining, railways, etc. So this meant that the private sector could enter all the areas except these 8. What are these 8? Atomic energy, arms, ammunition, defense, mining, railways, etc. Okay. This meant that the private sector could enter all except these 8. And now it's only 3 since 2001, giving competition to public sector. Then second one is disinvestment of public sector enterprise. That means disinvestment involves the sale of equity shares to the private sector and the public. And this was done with an aim to raise funds and encourage the wider participation of the general public as well as the workers in the ownership of these enterprises. And this was expected to result in improved managerial efficiency. Okay, then this one, the second point was policy regarding the SIC units. So policy was that all the public sector units were referred to the Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, that is BIFR, to decide whether a SIC unit was to be reconstructed or closed down. So a national renewal fund, it was set up by the government to retrain the labor retrenched from a SIC unit and to provide the compensation to the public sector employees. Then Memorandum of Association or Understanding Management of Public Sector Unit was granted greater autonomy but held accountable for the specified results. Okay, it was held accountable for the specified results through signing of Memorandum of Understanding between the particular public sector unit and their administrative ministries. So under this system, public sector units were given the clear targets and operational autonomy for achieving those targets. Understood? So the next topic is measures taken by government. What were the measures which was taken by the government to reform the public sector? So the first one is reduction in industries reserved for the public sector. So in the first 5-year plan, the government had reserved 17 industries for the public sector, as I told you. This meant that only the government could operate in these industries and no private capital would be involved. But by 1991 it was reduced to 8, and then further it was reduced to 3. So while the public sector must be credited with the developing of these industries, now the private sector is quite capable of taking them forward. Okay, that means the private and the public companies coexist and complement each other. Then next is disinvestment. So disinvestment means from the public sector means to sell the equity shares in public companies to the private sector, taking out the fund from the public sector and then reinvesting or means from after disinvesting, reinvesting it in the private sector. Also, it allows for the new influx of capital and better efficiency. It ensures that the government has additional funds to invest in the social programs and the causes and the things, etc. Okay. Then it also shifts the commercial. Disinvestment also shifts the commercial as well as the financial risk to the private sector. Then protection of SIC units, or you can say the closure of SIC units. So after the change in policies, all the public sector units were to be reviewed by the Board of Industrial and Financial Reconstruction, that is BIFR. This board would review that the condition of the units and then it decide whether they were capable of rehabilitation or were to be shut down permanently. But the workers, they were not happy with that. They were upset with this, and employees of the SIC units, but this news upset the workers and the employees of the SIC units, and these units were shut down. So since the government was not able to sustain such units, they had to be shut down. Okay. Then is MOU, that is Memorandum of Understanding. So this was a system to give the public sector units a chance. Okay, chance at revival. Okay, to restart. So the management of the unit and the government authorities would sign a MOU, and clear standards will be given for the enterprises to meet this. And if the targets were met by the company, would continue, otherwise it would be shut down or disinvested. So these were some of the changing role of public sector, as well as the changes which were changing role of public sector, as well as the government policy by the PU, that is public undertakings. Then comes global enterprises. You can say global enterprises or multinational companies. So what are these multinational companies? The term multinational, it consists of two words, that is multi and national. The multi means, the word multi means many, while the national refers to nations or countries. Okay. So a company form of organization which has its head office in one country but has its business operation in the number of other countries, that is only multinational companies. So as the name is suggesting, they are very large in size in terms of capital, operations, okay, areas of operation, scale, everything. So basically a multinational company is that company which is registered in one country, but the products are produced and sold in various other countries. Got it? So these are some of the examples of multinational companies. Hindustan Unilever Limited, ITC, Suzuki, all these are some of the examples. Then comes features of multinational companies. Huge capital. You all know this. If the company is large in size, then obviously it's going to require more capital. So this is first feature. Okay, investors and the financial institutions of this country will be ready to invest because of their credibility. Then foreign collaboration. These companies, they collaborate with, or they come together, or they join with some foreign companies for getting the benefits from them. Then advanced technology. It's very obvious, since they are collaborating with the other countries, they come to know about their advanced technology and the way of working. Then marketing strategies. Not only the technology, but also they comes to know about their strategies, marketing strategies, that how they sell the products in the market, or how they attract the customers by producing which type of products. An expansion of market territory, that's very obvious. They are not doing business only in one country, but they are doing it in the various countries. Then product innovation. While producing it in their own country, they will be doing only limited things. But once they start collaborating with the other countries, they come to know about the various new ideas. And as they come to know about these ideas, what happen? They start innovating their products as well, which leads to the more attraction of the customers. Then centralized control. As I told you, they are registered only in one country. So the headquarter will be in that country only where it got registered. So the parent company or the organization where is it registered, that will be called as a centralized one, and there also, from there only it will be controlled. Understood? So these were some of the features of multinational companies. And what can be the disadvantages of this? It can be creation of monopoly, threatening national sovereignty, exploitation of natural resources, no benefit to the poor people. All this can be some of the disadvantages. Understood? Then joint ventures. Now what is joint ventures? So Joint ventures, it may be preferred as when a company lacks necessary resources to expand its international operations, or it wants to enter an overseas market where wholly owned activities are prohibited, or desires to use the market position or the management skills of a local partner, or is unable to exercise the complete control on the venture. Okay. So these were, as you can see, an association of two or more individuals or the organization formed by agreement for a common purpose. So joint ventures, it may be formed to either enlarge the resources or to avoid the national pressures. Okay. So their main objective is to form joint ventures with the local partner to economize the resources or to enter the foreign markets. Got it? Like Honda and Yamaha, Bajaj Allianz, Mahindra, Renault, all these. So what can be the benefits of joint venture business? Easy entry in the overseas market. Easy entry. So those companies which lack in capital as well as the human resources and even wants to enter the foreign market, so they can do so by easing, means by entering in the joint ventures. Okay. Then increased resources, obviously they are going to come together and join together or collaborate. Then what will happen? That will lead to increase in the resources as well as the capacity. Then access to market, or access to, you can say, the overseas market. So those companies, this I have already told, which lack in capital and the human resources, they can do so by the way of joint venture. Then access to technology. So by engaging in partnership with a foreign company, the Indian company can enjoy the benefit of latest and the advanced new technology. Then innovation. So the markets are increasingly becoming more demanding in terms of the new and innovative products. So joint ventures, it allows the business to come up with something new and creative for the same market. So how can you tell that how is it different from each other? How the joint venture and this multinational company, they are having one centralized organization. Where is it registered? It is registered, and then they are doing the business in various countries. But what is happening with this joint venture? The company is lacking with the resources or the capital, and it wants to collaborate with the foreign market. Then they come together with the foreign market and do their business in a collaboration. Got it? Then low cost of production. So when two companies, they work together, it's possible to do the business on a large scale basis, and they get the benefit of economy of scale of production, and as a result the cost of production is reduced. Then established brand name. Who is going to get that? The company which was having lack of resources and this technology and everything. Okay. Then these are some of the types of joint ventures: equity based and contractual. You can read all this. It's not in your NCERT, but still you can go through it. Equity based and contractual joint ventures. You can read it once. These are some of the examples. So other than this, these two which are given here, let me tell you basic types of joint ventures. So these are three: licensing, franchising and subsidiaries, which is given in your NCERT. So let me tell you about that. So licensing means domestic firms. Okay. They authorize the foreign firms, or they give the permission to the foreign firms to use their technologies or the trademark in exchange of fee or royalty. So they take the responsibility of manufacturing the or managing the products. Understood? They give the foreign firms the permission to use their technologies, and in return what they get? The royalty or fee, sorry. But franchising nowadays, it has become very popular both in internal and external trade. So franchising means it is a form of licensing only, which a parent company grants another independently entity the right to do the business in a prescribed manner. Okay, parent company is franchisor and the independent entity is franchisee, the right to do the business in a prescribed manner. And this right can take the form of selling the franchisor products, using its name, production, marketing techniques, etc. And nowadays, India wants to encourage and promote joint ventures abroad to participate in the developmental efforts to other countries. Okay, so this can provide them with the capital goods, technical know-how, extend cooperation, etc. Like Birla Yamaha, it's the example of joint venture. And then the third one after licensing and franchising is subsidiary. So with a wholly owned subsidiary, domestic firm take all the responsibility for manufacturing, managing, marketing their products in the other countries, and subsidiaries are considered to be more profitable than licensing.